Welcome back, everybody. Today I'm going to talk about A Quiet Place Day One. I went and saw this on Sunday of this last weekend, and yeah, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit, give my opinion on it. This isn't a review that you need to watch the other two films in the series. I know this one's called Day One, but this one is the third film in the series, technically. We got Quiet Place Part 2, and then Quiet Place Day One that just released. Day One takes place in New York City, right when this massive alien attack pretty much just instantly hits, so it's like ground zero for it. Now, with Day One, I love the idea. I really love the idea. I love the fact that it's set in one of the loudest places in the United States, practically, and or if not the world, to be honest with you. It focuses on one woman specifically. She is a cancer patient. They don't really go into what type of sickness she has. We just know that she's not very well at the moment. She's good. She's very good. Her whole premise is really fun. She's more of a character that like kind of has this idea of like, I'm dying anyway, fuck the aliens. I want to go get pizza. That's kind of like her goal throughout the movie. And at first when you're watching the movie, when her goal is to just go through the streets of New York while these aliens are eating people, her goal is to get to a pizza place from when she was a kid that she really has always wanted. It's almost like a last meal for her in a way. When you're first watching and like her goal is to get to a pizza place the whole time, you're kind of like, wow, this is fucking stupid. Like, this is inconsequential. But you start to realize that the movie's not just about survival. It's about living as much as you can, you know. And I know that's kind of like a, you know, both those things, it's kind of, I guess, an oxymoron in a way, but it's something different when you have a sickness and when the world is ending, but your world has already been ending this entire time. And that's kind of what her character brings to the table. And it's refreshing in a lot of ways because the movie doesn't focus on, we got to get here to survive. No, she doesn't give a shit. She doesn't care about the survival. There's a part in the movie, and I'm not going to spoil too much of this movie because it is a very good movie. There's a part in the movie where the evacuation of New York is starting, and all the people that are remaining that are hidden inside buildings and stuff from these aliens. And the aliens, of course, if you haven't seen Quiet Place, I don't know how you haven't, but if you haven't seen Quiet Place, for context, the aliens can't see anything, but they can hear very well. Like, they are very, very keen on hearing. So the smallest of sounds will make them come running. The people of New York are hiding. They start to realize very fast that these monsters are sound oriented. So a lot of people go and hide inside buildings, you know, inside theaters, inside like little things that are well hidden, you know, no lights on, everything's quiet. There's a part where everybody starts to try to evacuate and the entire city of New York is just walking down one street. And obviously you're thinking to yourself like, holy shit, that's crazy. But at the same time, it's also loud as fuck. And throughout this herd of people, the main character, she's going the opposite direction. So she's going into the crowd, going to the opposite direction to get to Harlem so she can go and get a slice of pizza. And that is overall what the movie is about for her. That's what she's doing. We focus on her for the most part. Though on her journey, it's not just boring and her going to get pizza. Her journey, she finds people, and there's people that are suffering. There's people that need her help. There's people that are just running away. Like there's so much happening in the city of New York during this movie that it's almost overwhelming at times how crazy it actually can be. I think they did a really good job portraying how devastating an attack like this would be on New York. And I will say, from this, the first like 20 minutes, it's an hour and 40 minutes. The first 20 minutes of the movie, pretty slow. It's kind of like a build. It's building up to like the calamity happening. And I will say there's a part where she's like right in the beginning where, you know, the military's coming in, there's jets flying over, and it looks great. It looks really, really good. People start noticing these meteors flying out of the sky, and this is all in the trailer. So people start noticing these meteors coming out of the sky, which we as Quiet Place fans, we know those are the monsters, obviously. But I like scary movies that immerse me into the terror, immerse me into the horror. I love scary movies, and even though this is a PG-13 scary movie, I still respect it as a scary movie because it does what I demand from a scary movie. And what I normally demand from a scary movie is that it immerses me so much that I almost feel dread for the characters and for myself if I were in that situation. I like a good movie, a good scary movie that really puts me in the thick of it and really makes me feel like I'm those characters or I could be those characters. And this is something that could happen. For all we know, an alien invasion happens on New York, and this is the kind of alien we face. It would be absolutely insane. I'm not saying that's going to happen or anything. How would I know? But it gives you a sense of dread. And when you first see those meteors crashing down, she's on a bus with a bunch of people and she's looking out the windows, and one of the meteors crashes right in front of her. And when that happens, the screen goes black. It gets crazy. The sound gets really high pitched. And I felt my stomach turn because I knew from watching the previous two movies, these fucking aliens are, oh my God, terrifying. And in the first two movies, it takes place in like a kind of a rural town in like Kansas or something like that. So there's not as many people for the monsters to hunt. Also, Quiet Place Part 1 and Part 2 take place, I want to say like a year or so after the invasion. So the aliens have already settled in. The humans already know how to survive. They're all kind of on their own. Also, Quiet Place 1 and 2 focuses on one family, the John Krasinski family. So it's more or less like they know how to survive. They're on their own in their own little farm. So it's not as much action, I would say. Day one is definitely a climax. It's definitely like just nonstop violence happening all the time in the city. Though throughout the movie there are some slow parts. There's moments where she meets the guy from Stranger Things, the Eddie, which is Joseph Quinn. She ends up meeting Joseph Quinn. The main character is Lupita Nyong'o. I always mispronounce her name, but she's a great actress. She was in Us. I believe she in both Black Panthers. I'm assuming she was in both Black Panthers because she's that good of an actor. Yeah, 12 Years a Slave. I'm looking at it right now. 12 Years a Slave, Little Monsters. She's in quite a few like really, really big, good movies, and she's an absolute great actress. I love her in every way. I was really happy to see her as the main character of this movie. But Joseph Quinn, who's in Stranger Things as Eddie, everybody's fan, the fan favorite character in Stranger Things season 4. He's also in this. His character's good. He's kind of like a guy that's like there to show like that there's a lot of anxiety in people. He has a lot of panic attacks and everything, but he's not annoying. He's actually a really good character. He kind of just shows up randomly and he's just there, and he's a good character. I like him a lot. But the main focus is the main character, the chick. Throughout the movie, though, she's just kind of going through New York trying to get to her destination. And that's something I really liked about this movie, is that the pizza thing, again, it might sound inconsequential, but to her, it meant something. And it was a big deal for her to get to the pizza place. And I like that. I like that it wasn't like it didn't like try to push the envelope to be like the same fucking scary movie as before. It did its own thing, and it was smart the way it did it at times. The monsters are fucking ridiculous in this movie. There are so many of them. In the original two Quiet Place movies, we only really see a few of them at a time. In this, for example, the characters are hiding inside a theater for a while in this movie. They're like, they go to a theater in New York and they end up getting stuck there because of the invasion or whatnot. Every once in a while, helicopters will fly by and they'll give like a PSA. Like they'll say like, everybody needs to remain calm. And they're like high up in the air, like kind of announcing to everybody in New York that's still alive, hey, stay strong. You know, like we're figuring out contingency plans. And when those helicopters fly by, you'll see one monster fly by really quick, like chasing after the helicopter. And then after that, a horde of them, a fucking stampede of monsters just flying by. And that right there gave me my gut hurt. I was like, oh God, they're fucking everywhere. This is fucked up. This movie doesn't do anything new for the series, I would say. For example, Quiet Place Part 2, we figure out how the monsters can be killed. We figure out like there is a method to killing these things. Spoiler alert. In the first movie, we don't have anything. We're kind of just like, people just survive. This is how you survive. You survive by putting sand on the ground, walking barefoot, using sign language. That's how you survive against these things. That's how the first movie gave us. Second movie showed us how can they potentially be killed. That's what that shows. Day one doesn't show anything new that we haven't seen before, but it does show us that the monsters together are fucked, man. Like they're fucking crazy. Like they hunt together. They're on another level. And there are hints in this movie. I'm not gonna spoil much, but there's parts where like the monsters are eating, and you'll see what they're eating and what they landed on the planet with, and like they'll call over their friends to come and help eat with them. So showing like, oh, they hunt together. They hunt as a party. Like they're all together on this. They're not just hunting individually. It might look like they're hunting individually, but behind the scenes, they're tearing people apart together. And that's scary as shit. So that's what this movie definitely shows. Other than that, it doesn't show anything particularly new, I would say, but that makes sense because this is technically a prequel. This is the first. This is technically the first movie, if you want to say that. And honestly, before I go into anything else, I will say that this movie, you could probably watch this one first. Like, if you were like new to the series as a whole and you were like, should I watch Quiet Place Part 1 or should I watch Day 1? You could probably just watch Day 1 first. Mainly because Day 1 actually has a character. I'm not going to spoil who it is. There's actually a character in Day 1 that ends up being in Part 2. So that's kind of cool. That's something to look out for. But I still think personally, I think the first movie, the one with John Krasinski, the two that John Krasinski directed himself, he still produced this last one that came out Day 1, but he didn't direct it. He was taking a break from directing. I still think 1 and 2 are better than Day 1, but I do think Day 1 does things that are just more climactic and more like, holy shit for the series. I think Day 1, I don't know, I haven't watched all 3 in a row yet. Like, I want to watch Day 1, Part 2, and kind of get what I'm trying to say here, like at a full extent. But I do believe that you can watch Day 1, Part 2, and it would probably be a really good pace. At the same time, though, Part 1, Part 2 don't have as much bombastic action. But for the story, it's fun to watch all 3 in a row, if that makes any sense. With that being said, we do have information that Part 3 is going to be coming out in 2025, and it is the final John Krasinski trilogy of the final film of the trilogy. So I don't know if they're going to do more spin-offs like Day 1 or if they're just going to stop after Part 3. But personally, I hope they keep going because I would love to see what's going on in Europe, for example, or Asia or wherever. I would love to see other parts of the world being infested by these monsters, because just in New York, like, it was out of this world what these monsters were doing to these people. I do think, like, I know I said I love the PG-13 aspect of it all, but I am a sucker. I love mature movies. So if this movie had gore, I think all 3 of these movies would be like the highest of the highest praises from me. Not saying that they're not, as of right now, the highest praises I can give them, but I think instead of being a 8 or a 9 out of 10 for these movies, I think they'd be a 10 out of 10 if they had gore. I think the way these monsters rip things apart, I think I would love to see that. But I'm also a psychopath that likes to see blood and gore all the time. You know, not everybody can see that, and I know they're trying to appeal to a PG-13 audience as well. I think Day 1 was really good. I think it had some really good ideas. I think it had great acting. It tied everything together, and if you're a big fan already of the series, there's just more of it here. That's really what it is. I wouldn't say it's like terrifying scary, but it gives you like that feeling of dread. Though it's not like, oh, cover your eyes, I'm scared. It is to the point where you're like, you're like biting your nails. You're holding your breath in Quiet Place fashion. The theater I went to, it was perfect. Everything was fine. Everybody was quiet. Everybody understood the premise of the movie. I recommend this movie. I recommend this movie very much, especially if you really like the first and second movie. I think you're going to really like Day 1. I think it was really good. I even really like the ending of Day 1 as well. I like the way the story finished out for the characters. It just worked. It just worked. And normally when you get to the third movie and it's a prequel, normally it's kind of bad. But this one did it. This one did really well. And I'm really hoping Quiet Place Part 3 is on the same level, if not better. If I had to rate this one, I don't really love doing the out of 10 thing anymore because I feel like everybody has a different like rating system. So if I were to do like an out of 10, I'd give it like a 7.75. I think that's a very good score for a scary movie. Especially a third in the series as well. I didn't do reviews on the first and second one on the channel, but I put the first one as a 9 out of 10. I put the second one as an 8.7 out of 10. I put this one as a 7.75. Not because it's that much worse, but because it's inconsequential to what's going on in the story where we're at with Emily Blunt and The Quiet Place Part 2. It's inconsequential, though it does tie some stuff together and shows you a little more context into the monsters and how much they are. It's inconsequential in my opinion. But we'll see where the series goes from there. I appreciate everybody who's watching. I'm sorry if this was a little bit of a ramble, but I really like this movie. I think everybody should see this movie. I think it's really good. I don't know if it's going to be in theaters. I don't know how well it's doing, to be honest. I didn't look into the box office of it. I'm sure it'll be in theaters for quite some time, so expect it to be on streaming in the next couple months. But as of right now, I like this movie a lot. I think it's worth seeing. Acting was great. Story was fun. It pushed the narrative a little bit more, though it was a little inconsequential. I still really liked it. There were some crazy ass moments in this movie. Check it out. Yeah, 7.75.